Thank you, Cliff, and Benjamin, and company, and everybody that helps out. I love it. It goes along with what Cliff was talking about in Sunday school, using the talents that the Lord has given you. Use it for the blessing of the body, to be a blessing in the kingdom of God. I got a question before we start. I like this story, and I want to tell it, but I want to know if anyone's heard it before. Did Jim ever tell the story about the bird that could sing the Yellow Rose of Texas? Yeah, I know it. I don't know. Anyway, after I study something too long, it's like, we have heard this before. And so I don't know. Anyway, this is a Thanksgiving story, by the way. There was a rich Texan who loved to give. He made a habit of giving his father really neat Father's Day gifts. And one year he gave him a whole hang gliding lesson series, paid for it all. The next year he got him a whole album of one of his favorite singers, all of his hits, a signed copy. But then this last year he really outdid himself, and he bought a bird from South America. It's called the translator bird. Is there really such a thing? And it could speak 5 languages. It could sing the Yellow Rose of Texas, whatever that is, in any key that you started in. And so he thought, this is going to be really great. And he sent it to his dad, and a week later he called up and said, "Dad, how do you like the bird?" And he said, "It was delicious." And the moral of the story is, sometimes we have been blessed with so much, we are not aware of what we have. I love this story that I wanted to tell. Sorry. All right. The name of, and often I don't have a name for my sermon, but this time I did, and Bianca texted back and said, "Really? Seriously?" The aroma of Thanksgiving. And this should all be fresh in your mind. I think most of us do, you walk into a kitchen at Thanksgiving time or Christmas time or whatever, and it's a wonderful thing. It can smell like, and it starts a couple of days before Thanksgiving, actually. There can be pies, or I think the best is the day of Thanksgiving if she bakes rolls. Did you ever walk into a house of freshly baked rolls? That's a marvelous thing. Anyway, or on the flip side, we have a challenge in our family of trying to make roasted shivered almonds. Did you ever do that? And if I've already volunteered to sit there at the oven with my eyes glued to the door. Yeah, the broiling. What did I say? Broiling. Something like that. Anyway, I wasn't going to point at you, but we have trouble in our family. The shivered almonds can go from being raw to being smoking in like 0.4 seconds. Somehow, even if I'm watching them, and that gives off a whole different aroma. That is an eye-singeing aroma. That is not such. But anyway, let me get to my notes here before I spill all the beans. So what was the aroma in your house? In fact, let me ask you, and I like feedback here, is aroma a good word or a bad word? All right, let me ask you this. Is odor a good word or a bad word? Bad. What is smell a good word or a bad word? Mediocre. Isn't that funny? When I talk about aroma, generally I relate that to a pleasant thing. Fragrance. People wear aromas. Gals, what are they called? Perfumes. What is it? I heard the word. Scent. Is there something called essence? What is it? I don't know. I know there's an essence of something or other. Oh, is that okay? It's not a name. All right. Yeah. All right. A kitchen, a house has an essence, it has an aroma, and some people, we all have an aroma. And some people, you can tell that they're in the room without even seeing them. Did you ever notice that? Sometimes that's overdone. Well, you know what? Our lives, our personages, our character have an aroma that people sense. I'm going to tell you right where we're going right off the bat so you don't have to wonder. We're talking about the aroma that our lives exude, the aroma that pervades your being, that people sense when they are in your company, in your presence. Is it a good thing? Does it make them say, man, I enjoyed being with them? Or do you go, boy, that was eye singeing or ear singeing or whatever? Because we can do both of that. Aroma is kind of the essence that pervades your kitchen at Thanksgiving. It can be welcoming, warming, or if burned, it can drive you away. The essence that pervades your character, words, relationships, actions, and reactions. Does your aroma draw people in or drive them away? And if you've ever, it made me say, okay, did you ever wonder if people are not drawn to you, why that might be? Well, it could really be an aroma. Or is it draining? Is it draining for people to be with you? Or is it a bitter experience? Or have you ever heard of an acid personality or a caustic personality? We have all these flavors that describe who we are. Back to the aroma of Thanksgiving. Oh, first, youngsters or anyone here, I want to dissect. I like dissecting. Why do you dissect? Why do you dissect something? What's that? You do what? See the guts. Okay, yeah. You see the little tiny parts of a thing so that you what? Understand the whole thing better. So let's dissect the word thank you. Take thank, T-H-A-N-K. What does thank mean without using the word thank? Gratitude, blessing, appreciate. Yeah, to attribute to appreciate, to be blessed. What does you mean? Y-O-U. Anybody but myself. And I like to think about that. That is what the word thank you means. It is attributing and blessing and appreciating somebody else, not me. Thank you is a wonderful word, if not used flatteringly. We can slaughter good words. Anyway, I like rabbit trails, and I will try to get back to the main trail here. A lot of what I have has come, I'm plagiarizing, I'll be honest, right up front. I don't want any questions. There was a sermon that I read, and I really enjoyed, by a Dr. Whitman. So a lot of it comes from that. Also, a scientific study on gratitude. I love science. Did you ever apply science to gratitude? Well, they did. They took over 40 studies, and you know how people, they will survey people and they'll have them assess their own gratitude from 0 to blah, blah, blah. All these different questions, and in the end, they ferret out the factors and the information. So a lot of this comes from it. It was a non-Christian. In fact, it said right at the beginning, this is not a Christian thing. Study, 40 different studies to conglomerate all the information about gratitude and its effect on who you are and your life. So those were kind of my sources. But I like what one guy said. The bottom line, thankfulness or gratitude emerge as not but as an underlying fundamental attitude of an established Christian. And I read that and I thought, is that really true? Does the Bible tell us that? The attitude of thankfulness, the attitude of gratitude, they call it, the attitude of thankfulness emerges as a Christian grows and it is established. One of the underlying principles will be the attitude of thankfulness, or something is broke. Is that fair to say? And it took me a little bit to digest that and say, man, I don't want to speak out of line here. In contrast, well, let me back up. A thankful attitude, a thankful attitude, a thankful person shows a lot what is in that person's heart. It shows a lot how we go through life. What is our outlook on life? How do we relate to people? How do we relate to happenings? It shows a lot. Real life shows what is in the heart of a person. It really does. What are the three legs that thankfulness stand on? What are the three legs that thankfulness stands on? In other words, you have to have these three things. You say, okay, I want to have a thankful life. What has to happen in your heart? And I'll give you one. Humility. You cannot be thankful, as far as I know, and be proud. You cannot be thankful and be bitter or resentful or angry. Have you ever seen a thankful, angry person? No. Humility is one of the legs of a whole life of thankfulness. Another leg is contentment. If you read in Philippians 4:11, and I'm going to flip there because I don't remember exactly what it is. Philippians 4:11. Somebody move my Philippians. They really did. I thought I had bookmarks. I don't. All right, Philippians 4:11. Not that I speak in regard to need, for I have learned in whatever state I am to be contented. I think that is another leg that gratitude, you have to have an underpinning of contentment. Number one, humility. And number two, contentment. Now, your challenge, because I like three things and I didn't come up with a third one, by the end of the sermon, I want you to tell me what the third thing is. I'm serious. What is the third leg that a thankful spirit stands on? There's got to be three, unless you know the answer already. But think about it, and I want you to think about it during this time. Number one, a humble heart. A humble heart is a heart that has a realistic view of who I am and who God is. In fact, I want to keep going here. We are told, this is a commandment, a thankfulness is not just and I don't think thankfulness is just a command of God that he just thought it was a good thing. I think that I want my people to be thankful. Yeah, I'll decide that. No, thankfulness is a natural result for his people. And it's kind of like the blossom on the flower. It takes growing, it takes watering, it takes sunshine, it takes all of these things. Thankfulness is the result of a growing person, a growing Christian. I believe. Not that non-Christians are not thankful. I'm not saying that at all. But in Christ, thankfulness should be a growing attitude as we mature. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything, we are told here, in everything, and this made me think of this. All right, not the last song. How many of you knew that song, I Thank You for the Valley? That's an older song. Were you serious? Did you look at the words of that song? Do I thank the Lord for the valley I walk through that I walk through today? Do I thank the Lord for the stress? Do I thank the Lord for the hard times? Jackie, do you thank the Lord for this valley? I'm picking on you. Some days, yeah. Is it easy? No. But this is what it says. 18, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Do you want to know what His will is for you? To have a thankful heart. We don't have to question what His will is. He tells us in this aspect of our life to have a thankful heart. And I want to jump back to a psalm of thanksgiving, Psalm 100, and kind of work through the verses here, and I'm going to run out of time, I'm afraid. So, a thankful attitude of humility and contentment, and a third one that we're going to figure out, in contrast to the attitude of the world today. What is the attitude of the world today? I made it myself. You owe it to me. I'm a self-made man. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Did you ever try that? Broke the straps before I got off the ground. What others? I mean, what other are the common sentiments of people that we look up to them and say, they did it on their own? Did they really? That's not what Psalms tells us. If you look back, Psalms 100 is a praise psalm. It's only 5 verses long. But it's really wrapped around the idea of praise and thanksgiving. By the way, Benjamin, thank you for that song. You took all the wind out of these verses for me. And Cliff did too. Did you ever go sailing? If you ever want to go sailing, holler at me. I love to go sailing. I'd love to take you. But every once in a while, poof, the wind is gone. It quits. Well, I'm going to hit a spot here where he already used up all the wind. It was a good Sunday school lesson, by the way. All right, Psalm 100. Make a joyful shout to the Lord, all you lands. The word noise in here talks about, it gives the idea, if you look back, it's the idea of burst. Did you ever feel like you were going to burst with emotion? That you can't keep it in? That's what it says, that we are to come before the Lord. Make a joyful shout to the Lord, all you lands. Where have you seen that happen most? And it's not in church. An unbridled shout. Go to a ball game, exactly. The word enthused. You have seen people enthused. Is that right? Where? At the ball game. The word enthused, if you go back and look at its meaning, talks about being possessed of God. Being possessed, somebody possessed of God. We talk about demon possession. This is God possession. If you look at the enthusiasm in our church sometimes, do you say people are definitely God possessed there? You know what? And I think that I love the singing. And I love the enthusiasm. And so I don't feel like I feel like I'm talking to the choir on that, and I appreciate that. The enthusiasm for the Lord and what he is doing and who he is. The children of Israel, if you look back, their worship service was really centered around thanksgiving and praise of who God is and what he has done. And they shouted to the Lord. They were enthused. In fact, God told them, this is how you are to worship, in thankfulness. That's what this first verse is about. Make a joyful shout or noise to the Lord, all you lands. Let me go to verse 2. Serve the Lord with gladness. Serve the Lord with gladness. A lot of people serve the Lord, and I like how he puts it into 4 G's. Some people serve the Lord out of greed. I do this because of what I get out of it. A greedy person will never be satisfied, because there is a spiritual problem there that they're trying to fill with a physical thing called money, materialism, I don't know. A greedy person will never be satisfied. So some serve the Lord out of greed. Some serve the Lord with a grudge. I have been there. I'll be honest. I am tired of doing. I have done, and I have done, and I have done. And he talks about some people, we can get to the point where it's like, God, you owe me. I have done enough. You owe me. Sometimes we serve God with a grudge, a greed or grudge. Sometimes we serve God through the grind. Did your marriage ever turn into a grind? That's a bad thing to say. Marriages can. If they lose their passion, their zeal, a relationship with your spouse can be a grind. And in the same way, if we lose the passion and zeal of worshiping the Lord, of realizing who he is, we say, yes, I've heard that, and I'm used to that, and I'm over that. And worship to the Lord becomes a grind. So we can serve out of greed, grudge, or grind, or, as it says here, with gladness. Gladness is like a new marriage. It is not hard to serve your partner, to be thankful for your partner, your spouse, in a new marriage. As the newness wears off, that can change. And unless we work at it, we can lose the passion, the zeal, that closeness, or it can be gladness. Verse 3. Let me read verse 2. I don't think I read it. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Verse 3. It boils it down to the essence. Why should we be thankful to God? Why should you be thankful to God? Do you have anything to be thankful to God about? This is what it says. Know that the Lord, he is God. Understand this. Get a hold of this. The Lord is God. It is he who made us. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. Boy, that goes directly against the American idea, I did it myself. I pulled up my own bootstraps. I'm a self-made man. Know that the Lord, he is God. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. That has a lot to do with humility. If we lose sight of who God is and what he has done for us and where we fall on that scale, we lose the position, the attitude of humility really quick. And we say, you know what, I either did this or somebody else did it for me. It's not God. Know that the Lord is God. He is God. It is He that hath made us, not we ourselves. This verse is about the truth of humility and a right relationship with God. He is God, and there is no other to compare Him with. It made me think, when you talk about a person, an animal, whatever, how do you describe them? If I would describe a person here as somebody who is like a bull, I would immediately think of Keegan. He can plow through anything. There's nothing that's going to stop him. I shouldn't say nothing. Not much. There is something to compare Keegan with. That is a bull. Or you can take any of that. When it comes to God, if there is only one like that, there is none to compare them with. You have to have two similar, or there is no comparison. That's why the Bible says there is none that compares to you. No, that's in the song, I think. Is that right? That's in a song. There is none to compare you with. There are not two gods. There are not two in His class. And if you look at the Bible, we grasp at trying to describe God because there's no one in His class. And that's what this verse is saying. He is God. There is no other to compare Him with. Verse 4. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and into His courts with praise. Be thankful to Him and bless His name. The children of Israel also understood the thing of blessing. Do you ever bless God? Trick question, right? You're not sure whether to say yes or no. Does God bless us? Absolutely. Which direction does the blessing flow? Uphill or downhill? Absolutely. The blessing flows from the greater blessing the lesser. Jacob, when he wrestled in the night, he clung to the angel of the Lord and he said, bless. He knew the value of the blessing of the greater upon the less. He said, I will not let go of you unless you bless me. Do you remember that? They understood the blessing. It was a blessing that conferred a more effective life, a greater life, a longer life. If you look at the blessing and read the blessings of the fathers upon the children in the Old Testament, the sons, often it was a blessing that would describe their future, who they would become. So when it says here, enter His courts with praise and bless His name, how do we bless God? We're the lesser, He's the greater. Any ideas? I think that is where thanksgiving comes in. We cannot bestow upon God something that He doesn't have. Did you ever try to do that? Did you ever try to figure out what God doesn't have that I'm going to bless Him with? There's nothing. We can't do that. But we can recount and acknowledge His blessing of us. That is how we bless God. By remembering and recounting and acknowledging who He is and His blessing of us. That song, we plow the fields and scatter, that's an old song, but it talks about the blessings through the year. The blessings of all these that He has rained down upon us. So when it says, in that really gets into the thing of thankfulness. Enter His courts with thanksgiving and I miswrote. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and into His courts with praise. Be thankful to Him and bless His name. Verse 5, for the Lord is good. Is there any question on that? For the Lord is good. How long is he good? All the time. Never ends? The verse says never. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations. The Lord is good all the time. And that is where this whole psalm is wrapped around the attitude of thanksgiving, of a life of thankfulness, in recognizing who God is and who we are. We are the sheep of his pasture. Do you know what that means? He leads us, he guards us, he watches us by night, he feeds us, he waters us. I don't know, does he trim our hooves? That's what I have to do. Shear them and trim their hooves and take care of them and watch for wounds and infections, and he does all of that. We are the sheep of his pasture. Thankfulness, a life of thanksgiving, that aroma in your life, and you know when you're in the presence of a thankful person, that is a welcoming experience. That is a natural result of three things, I hope. What are they? Number one, humility. Number two, contentment. I need a three. Come on. Say it again. Acknowledging, verbalizing it. Okay. Somebody over. Mercy. Grace. You know what? Yeah, there's probably a lot of it. I like three, so I don't know how I'm going to wrap that all into one. But in my heart, humility and contentment, and I like verbalizing it, acknowledging it. That is I'm going to claim, and maybe there's mercy and grace and that joy. You know what? That is all so much part of it. There has to be joy, I think, to be thankful. Does that mean that we're thankful when we're laying in the hospital run over by a semi? Am I thankful for getting hit? No, I don't know that I'm saying that, but there's an underlying life view of thankfulness and joy. Am I thankful when I smash my thumb with a hammer? No, not really. I don't know that it's saying, thank you, Lord, hit it again. Not that, but an underlying attitude of humility, of joy, of contentment. I'm going to run out of time here. I wanted to quote some of the things from this study. This is a non-Christian study. Let me see if I finished up with a Christian part of it. I did. All right. I lost my phone. In fact, by the way, my dad wanted me to dial him up because he's traveling, and he said, I can't be in a service this morning. So if you want to say hi to Dad, he's listening. Good morning. They're all saying good morning. And I don't know if this is going to work, if that's going to click him off or not. I'm going to just quote from this. Actually, there was another part. Be aware of what God has blessed us with. He went on to talk about being aware and recounting. And the be aware, we are so blessed as a people. He brought out kind of these analogies. He said if you would shrink the population of the whole world, and this is mathematically correct, I guess, if you would shrink the population of the whole world into a city of 1,000 people, 46 of those people would be Americans. Now, whether that's U.S. or Canada or both, I'm not sure. 46 out of 1,000 would be Americans. 954 would be from the rest of the world. Those 46 Americans would take in half of the income. The other half is distributed among 954 people. Those 46 people, Americans, would enjoy a lifespan about 75 years. The average of the other 954 would be just almost 40. That's sobering. Those 46 people would have 15 times the material goods of the rest of the world. 15 times, and I think that was per person. I hope it wasn't the other way around. 15 times more per person. Those 46 people would be overfed as a rule, have too much food. 800 of those 954 would have not enough, what we would call a balanced diet. 800 out of 1,000, 8 out of 10 people on earth do not have a balanced diet. The dogs and cats of the 46 eat better than most of those 800. That's sobering thoughts. Be so aware. In the part that Cliff talked about this morning, he talked about the responsibility, and now I'm kind of losing that connection, but I want to, the talents that God has given us, how would your money, if Jesus had your money, would it be used in the same way as you are using it? If he had your time, if Jesus lived your life, had your time, would it be used in the same way that I am using it? And I was thinking about young people, young guys. Young guys glory, I'm going to talk about the glory of the young guys and the gals. The young guys, they glory in their strength and their agility and their speed. Young guys, if you guys are blessed with strength and speed and agility and all of that, and that is a wonderful blessing. If Jesus had that, would he be using it in the same way that you are? Gals, you are blessed with beauty. Sorry to pick on you. Would Jesus, if he had your beauty, would he use it for the same thing you are using it for? It makes me step back and take a hard look at my own life. What am I doing if Jesus, we claim to follow Jesus, if he had what he has blessed me with? He didn't bless me with money or things to be used on myself. He blessed each one of us with money to use it just like he would. Our time, just like he would. Our talents, that's where Cliff took all the wind. That was really good. Talking about the servant who just took the talent, safely wadded it up, and stuck it in his pocket and did nothing with it. He didn't risk it. He didn't use it. He didn't multiply it. He didn't grow it. Am I using the talents to be the blessing that God gave them to me for? And those are sobering questions, because we will be called to account with what we have done, with what he has given us. I'm over time here, but I want to, listen, this scientific study, they looked at the impact of a life of thankfulness, or they called it the attitude of gratitude. Non-Christian, what are the benefits? If you want to know, read it. No. There were 31 benefits, and they had a whole lot, all the way from relationships. It improves relationships. They know mathematically, statistically significant. It's not a question of whether it does or doesn't. They have looked at people. They have a quotient called a appreciation versus nagging quotient. Nice. How is your quotient? Appreciation in the numerator and nagging in the denominator. If they know mathematically, if your ratio is 0.9, meaning that there is a tiny bit more nagging than appreciation, blessing of your spouse, you are headed for divorce. or what they call languishment. Mathematically, survey, that's not a question, that's proven. You are headed for divorce or languishment in your relationship. If your quotient of appreciation to nagging, and they had different, you know what I mean though, positive feedback, positive things to your spouse versus undermining, undercutting, backhanded, nagging, whatever you want to call it, undervaluing. If that quotient is 5.1 or higher, you're in good shape. Your marriage is likely to do well. That is aside from belief system, Christianity, I guess. It's looking at the cold, hard quotient of appreciation, thankfulness versus nagging. So there you go, guys. On the way to church, if you fuss about that we're being late and your breath is bad, you just burned up a whole lot of real estate that you got to you got to do a lot to cover that ground. Anyway, materialism. They know that a life of a thankful spirit reduces materialism. They know that it keeps you away from the doctor. That's bad for business. Don't get too thankful. Seriously, they know statistically that a thankful person visits the doctor less, recovers quicker, has less illness. That is a statistically proven thing. Is that not amazing? In fact, if you think that increasing your income, they said if you keep a gratitude journal 5 minutes a day, every day of the week, you just write down things you're grateful for. 5 minutes a day, every week, life blessing improves exactly the same as if you doubled your income. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Catch that. Doing 5 minutes a day of gratitude improves your life, joy, pleasure. Gladness was their center, happiness, not gladness. Happiness was their center score. It increases your happiness the same as doubling your income. Anyway, food for thought. I learned a ton on this, and I have a whole new challenge in my life of humility, contentment, and verbalizing, or grace, or joy, or whatever. So I challenge you in that. Let's close in prayer.